In this movie, we'll lift a few colors from the tracing template and we'll introduce them into our gradient in order to properly color the emoji's head. I'll go ahead and switch over to my document in progress, which contains a far less attractive gradient, and I'll go up to the window menu and choose the swatches command in order to bring up the swatches panel, which I'll use to house the colors that I lift from the template. All right, now if we want to see the template, then we need to switch to the outline mode, which you can do by going up to the view menu and choosing the outline command, or you've got that keyboard shortcut of Control Y or Command Y on the Mac. Now I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to switch to this tool right here, the eyedropper tool, which you can get by pressing the I key. Now, generally speaking, the purpose of the eyedropper is to lift fill and stroke attributes. What we're going to be doing is lifting colors from an imported image. And to have that happen with the least amount of frustration, you want to go ahead and press the Enter key or the Return key on the Mac to bring up the eyedropper options dialog box. And then over here on the left-hand side, make sure the appearance checkbox is turned off. In my case, it's turned on, so I'll go ahead and click on it to turn it off, in which case it will automatically twirl open and reveal a bunch of other stuff we don't care about. So as long as appearance is off, we're fine. All right, I'll go ahead and click on the OK button to make that change. And now I'm going to click way over here on the far right side of the face in order to lift a shade of orange. Now you want to be careful, by the way, when you're clicking and dragging around, that you don't click on the guide, because it's very possible you can either lift black for some reason, or you can accidentally lift the color of the guide, as I've done here. All right, but I want this shade of orange, so I'll click right there in order to lift it. And then I'll save that orange as a swatch by dropping down to the little page icon at the bottom of the swatches panel and clicking on it. And I'll just go ahead and name this guy Orange 1, and I'll turn on the global checkbox so I can come back and modify this swatch in the future and have it affect the gradient as well. You probably want to leave Add to My Library turned off, by the way. We'll be discussing libraries in a future chapter of this very course. But in the meantime, just go ahead and click OK. All right, now notice that we have a kind of intermediate shade of orange right about there. So I'll go ahead and click in order to lift it. And notice this orange is quite a bit lighter. So I'll go ahead and save it as well by clicking on the color swatch, calling this guy Orange 2, and then turning on the global checkbox and clicking OK. And then finally, from right about here, we have a very bright shade of orange that is almost yellow. Notice it right there. And it continues all the way to the center. So there's not much difference over the course of the face of the emoji. And so just go ahead and click right about there in order to lift a very light orange and save it by clicking on a little page icon, naming this guy Orange 3, and then turn on the global checkbox and click OK. All right, now I want to give myself a little more room to work. So I'm going to click on Jive right there, and I'm going to shift click on that gradient swatch, the orange gradient, and I'm going to Alt Option click on a little trash icon in the bottom right corner of the swatches panel in order to get rid of those guys. And because I had the Alt Option key down, I'm not seeing any warning. All right, now you want to click on this orange swatch there and shift click on this guy so that all three of them are selected. And let's put these guys in a group by clicking on a little folder icon at the bottom of the swatches panel. And I'll just call this guy Emoji and click OK. And we now have 3 shades of orange inside this folder. All right, now let's go ahead and switch back to the preview mode by again pressing Control Y or Command Y on a Mac. And you can see that I've totally lost my gradient. And that's because the object was selected as I was lifting colors. That doesn't really matter because I wasn't all that fond of that gradient in the first place. But I'll go ahead and revive it by clicking on this color ramp right there. And I'm going to get rid of one of these color stops by grabbing it and dragging it and dropping it away, like so. And now I'll replace some of these existing colors. And you do that by grabbing a swatch. So just grab it from the swatches panel, then drag it and drop it down. And if you drop it in the middle like so, then you'll create a new color stop. Or I'll press Control Z or Command Z on the Mac to undo that change. The other way to work is to drag and drop a swatch and drop it directly onto an existing color stop, in which case you will replace that color stop like so. All right, so I'll go ahead and replace this guy, and then I'll grab Orange 2 and replace the shade of blue that obviously I'm not interested in. And then I'll grab Orange 3 and drag it and drop it onto the very first color stop like so. And notice that our colors are becoming progressively lighter toward the center of the radial gradient. If that isn't the case for you, if you moved your colors into the wrong locations, all you have to do is click on this reverse gradient icon in order to reverse the order of the colors, and you will reverse the gradient inside the circle as well, so that things begin dark and end light, which obviously isn't what I want. So I'll just go ahead and click reverse gradient again in order to swap those color stops around. All right, so obviously we have a much more attractive gradient. The problem is if I press Control-Y or Command-Y on a Mac, it doesn't really match the template very well, and that's because I need to reposition my color stops as well as apply a few modifications to the colors. And I'll show you exactly how that process works in the very next movie.